Hi there, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Rebecca Miller with Quest Trust Company, and today I have joining us the president of Quest Trust Company, Mr. Nathan Long.
Thank you for having us.
And today I'm really excited to explore a special topic, which is about finding a lender, and really just what goes into finding a good lender, because we get this question all the time: where do I find money?
Right, where do I find money? And I think that private money is really the key in learning how to develop those relationships.
Because you always talk about how everybody has this major problem of finding more deals and more money to keep everything moving for their real estate investment businesses.
Yeah, I think if you're a real estate investor, you're always looking for two things: deals, money, deals, money, deals, and money. But you got to treat those two things completely different from each other. Whenever I'm looking for a deal, I think if I'm a real estate investor and I find a deal, as soon as I've secured that deal and I've got it going, the very next thing that I should do is go look for another one. Because when I finish with that deal, what happens? I'm unemployed, right? You know what I mean? Like, the next deal's always more important than the first one. Private money is a little bit different. Go ahead.
Oh, and so today we're going to be exploring how to find a private money lender and just some of the things that come along with that. We'll be right back in just a moment.
All right.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, Batchkip Tracing, Think Multifamily, CreativeCashflow.com, and Lifeiner.
And we're back. Thank you so much for joining us today on Quest Talks with Propelio TV. Today we're talking about how to find a private lender, and Nathan and I are going to explore some of the things that come together to make a good lender, starting with how to make the process painless for your private money lenders.
Well, again, I think if as you want to treat your lenders different than your deals, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you find a lender, you found one. Most of the time, they'll not only fund that deal, they'll fund the next deal and another deal and another deal and another deal. There's lenders that, as a lender, I've been lending to some of my same borrowers for over 20 years. And I think that's really important to understand and treat that, is that when you find one, you really do have to find them and learn how to keep them, right?
So it's really a relationship building business.
It really is. It's what makes it happen. And so many people will come up to me like after an event or whatever and be like, well, I went to one of your events and I didn't find any lenders. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And I really don't have time to sit down and explain to them some of the nuances of some of the things that they have. But I have experience from not only running Quest, but being a private money lender myself. And I know there's some of the things that turn me off sometimes as we go through it. And I want to talk about those things so you guys could maybe do a little better job and find some of those things.
So what do you find is one of the biggest nuances when you're talking to a borrower? Like do you have a preferred attorney, or do you use their attorney?
All good questions. Let's start with, I think the first thing that you have to understand when you're talking to a lender is that you are developing a relationship. And just like all relationships, if it's going to be a good one, it means you're probably going to have to invest some time. And you should start with that. If you rush up to someone at the end of an event and say, hey, I need some money, I'm looking for that, blah, 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 I got a deal that's on 123 3rd Street, can I have $120,000? You're probably not going to get anywhere. People do that to me all the time. I'm kind of like pulling my hand back, thing. I think a much better approach is, hey, I'm a professional borrower. I always use professional people. If you're looking for someone that's professional to place your funds into work, maybe we could sit down and talk.
Maybe take the moment to schedule that coffee break together.
Right. Take a little bit of time, just learn a little bit about people, because each and every lender is different and each circumstances is different. And if you've got to slow it down, especially on the first deal, mm-hmm. and take a lot more time with them each thing that they do. So
Would you say that when you're looking at a deal with a new lender that you spend a lot of time looking at the actual investment, maybe the repair costs or comps for the property that they're purchasing?
Well, I would say that you want to keep in mind, if you're doing your first deal, that you probably are talking, most of the time you're talking to a couple, and you want to make sure that you're addressing all the issues, right? And one of the big issues, you usually have one person that's like, hey, show me about the money and how much are we going to make and how much are we going to make, and what's the other person on the other side doing, or the other part of the couple thinking?
Probably thinking about decor, the color of the walls.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd say getting the money back.
Getting the money back, yes.
All right. So you want to make sure that all your discussion isn't talking about profit and what you're going to do and how it makes. You want to start the conversation with, I always like to make sure that my lenders are safe, and then describe the process that you use to make them safe. And that process should be pretty easy. First of all, I only use professionals to do everything, all right? I use professional contractors. I always close at a title company. I'm going to recommend an attorney to draft the note and deed of trust, but that's your attorney, even though I'm paying for them. They're going to represent you. If you don't like my attorney, you can get your own. That's okay. Don't be chintzy on some of these little things with lenders, especially in the first deal. They really need a lot of hand-holding. And I see some people that are like, oh, well, this attorney's a little bit more expensive and this, and you're shaving a little bit of money. That's great if you're talking about countertops and those things. But when you're talking about protecting your lender's interest, especially on the first deal, you want to do everything that you can. I think other mistakes I see people do is they don't hold their hand through the process. I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier.
I've seen that quite a bit. Or it's one of the things that I've always talked about with somebody who's looking for private money lenders is also understanding the process that your IRA lender is going to go through as far as helping them feel more comfortable, especially if somebody hasn't used a self-directed IRA before.
That's right. It could be complicated to somebody. They might like the idea of lending secured by real estate, but if they've never done it before, there's all those complications, and there's also complications with dealing with IRAs themselves. So I call it make the process painless for them. You shouldn't just say, oh, go to Quest, open up an account, and they'll take care of you. You go to Quest with them if you can, or get them on the phone.
Start a three-way call together.
You start a three-way call.
Together.
This is the IRA specialist that I always use. They are a professional, neutral third party. They do not work for me. They're going to explain to you how you use your IRA and what the benefits are. I'd rather have a professional do it than you. You see what I'm doing? I'm taking myself out of. If I'm an investor and I go, yeah, man, it's really cool. You can take your IRA and you can give me all your money and don't worry about it. It's not against the law at all. Just give it. You know, that sounds totally different than, hey, I'm using this professional over here and they're going to explain it to you. And that's what you are as a CISP at Quest.
That's correct. Whenever somebody's interested in knowing more about how they can use their IRA, as an IRA specialist, we're there to help, schedule the appointment and walk the prospective lender, through the entire process of how they can set up their self-directed IRA, what Quest would need to move the funds over maybe from their existing retirement savings account, because that may not even be something that their borrowers as savvy on as an IRA specialist is. And then, of course, the final steps of what's needed to process the investment out so that they know exactly, and also gives them a better idea of what they'll be working with, gathering together with their prospective borrower, because we have to have a promissory note and a deed of trust in order to process that secured loan out of the account.
Right. And I think that if you're working with the professionals in the beginning in an organized manner, you have a much better chance of actually closing your deal, because you won't run into those hairs at the end. Oh, all of a sudden I can't get the wire out in time, or this isn't filled out, or that isn't filled out. So make it painless. Make it painless. You want to sit down and talk with them with the IRA specialist. Same thing. I never use title companies as attorneys. I like to use a lender's attorney that specializes in drafting documents for lenders. And why? It's because that's the same attorney that I'm going to go back to if I had to foreclose on. What happens if you died? You might not be finished with the project. It may be nothing to do with the character issue as to why it would have to foreclose. You could get sick or die or something along those lines, get ran over by a bus when you leave out of here. I know I've talked about all these terrible things, but anything could happen. So if you're a borrower and you are truly concerned about protecting your lender's interest, that will show up. And how do you show that you're concerned? You make sure that you're hiring a professional attorney that they can talk to in the event of a default. And then you explain the default process. Hey, if I died and got hit by a bus, and for some reason my heirs couldn't finish this out, what do we do? Well, this is what we do. You call the attorney, they're going to start a foreclosure process, really easy to foreclose in Texas, and you make them feel very comfortable in the worst case scenario. This is so important with the first lender. Because again, you've got to address that fear that may not be everyone talking about, but it's there on the table, right? He's all talking about how much money he makes, but she's not going to let him do anything until she knows that the money's safe. Do we get that, you know? And I think that I see a lot of investors just kind of like brush past that.
Now, as a lender, do you often close to the title company as well?
I insist. I'll never do tabletop closings. I always make sure it's the title company. I always make sure that there's a title policy, and the title policy is lists me as a mortgagee for my IRA if I'm lending from my IRA, and I also get a mortgagee's clause. Again, if you're the borrower, you should encourage each one of these things. Each little suggestion that you give them to help protect them is going to be like, wow, these people have my true interest in mind. And say, hey, we're getting a mortgagee's clause. This is what a mortgage policy does, and this is why we close at a title company. And I'm adding this extra rider, so if anything happens to you and you had to take over the property, you would have that same type of coverage as well. And again, it just makes you feel better.
And before we get into our next topic here, we're going to take a quick break. Be right back to talk a little bit more about some of the ways to better communicate with your private money lenders to, again, build that relationship and make it stronger.
The Propelio Academy, an all-in-one education resource for training in wholesales, subject to wraps, short sales, flips, rentals, BRRRR, property management, and more. Go to propelio.com/academy to get your scholarship today. Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at Propelio.com.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Miller, and thank you for joining us on Quest Talks with Propelio TV. We're talking today with Nathan Long about how to really build a relationship with private lenders because there's so much private money out there that folks can lend with their IRAs, and we want to explore some of the relationship building techniques that borrowers can use to get more money for their deals. And right now we're going to kind of dig into one of the things that really builds that relationship, and that's communication. Communication's key.
Man, it's got to be the most important thing, and the thing that I think that most borrowers mess up. And the way you communicate to your lender should be precise, right? Often, right? And give them details. They should feel like they're part of the deal, especially in the first deals. I'll give you examples. When you first talk to them, have a nice scope of work. Talk about what you're going to do, and make sure that you're sharing that scope of work with your lender and how you expect for the repairs to go through. Give your lender an opportunity to escrow out those repairs. Sometimes I'll choose not to if it's not a big deal. Other times, if it's a big project, I'm going to want to pay for some of the repairs first and then give you a little bit more money and give you a little bit more money to protect yourself. Again, offer that. Don't wait for the borrower or the lender to make it a requirement. Each piece that you offer them is actually going to help you to maintain this lender in the long run.
Because one of the best things about building up and creating this relationship with the lender is that they'll want to lend to you more and more times again.
Oh, that's the key. And you don't want to just impress them. You want to star impress them, because it's not just their money that they're getting after. It's their whole family's money. I'm going to talk a little bit more about a trick to get more for each lender you get, how to get more money and end up getting more lenders from that lender. All right. So back to communication is, I think that one of the things that happen often is 90% of all flip, rehab, whatever, don't go the way they're supposed to. Do you agree with that?
I can imagine, yes.
Just things happen, which is most of the time the lender's perfectly fine with that, but often we're left not knowing, and we're left a little bit confused. So as repairs are going by, understand your lender may be driving past the property, looking at it. Send a quick email. Say, we expected to do the slab and the roof first, but the roof guy's behind, so we're going to do a little bit of this because the slabs work. Just tell them where you're at and what's going on. You would be surprised how much that little 2-minute email will help to cement in the relationship. Next, if you do have a problem, talk to your lender. Again, your lender wants you to be successful. They want you to make money. There's been plenty of times I've had people go over on the rehab. We had to give put a little second on it so that they could finish out, or they were just having some problems after the hurricanes. I had people mid-construction, they couldn't get equipment or people for a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
If they just talk to me 9 out of 10 times, but what happens is you tend to get behind on something or feel weird about something, and then rather than communicating it right from the beginning, you just like kind of hide, and then your payment's a little bit late, and all the lender does is worry and worry and worry. So communication's important.
And what exactly can a borrower do to better communicate if they are falling behind on payments? Just
tell them. Just be like, I'm running out of money. This is the reason why I'm having some problems here. And ask them, I can't make this payment because of this. Can we extend the loan? Can I get a different loan? Honestly, don't be afraid of telling them what you need, especially as you get in trouble. I'd rather try to help bail you out at the beginning of the trouble than wait till it gets to be really bad. Does that make sense?
100%.
And with all the experience I have, I might be able to do that. And it's really amazing. Here's one of the next areas that I think it's really important to communicate at the end of the deal. At the end of the deal, they're going to need, the title company is going to need a payoff.
Mm-hmm.
Help them figure out your payoff. It should be pretty simple, but you walk them through them. Okay, we got our principal amount. We had some interim interest that's going to occur in here, right? And we have to pay for the release of lien to be filed. So here's the payoff. You know what I mean? You actually have a little form, and you sit down and show them it. And then when you get done with the deal, after it's all done, you do an exit interview with them. How did I perform? Did you feel comfortable through this transaction? Right? Would you do another transaction with me? What is it? Just asking them those questions makes them feel more comfortable once again, and they might be able to give you feedback that if they didn't give you that feedback, they might not feel comfortable giving you the next loan.
Yeah, because then you're actually able to address any of their concerns or something that they didn't like throughout the process to better improve the relationship. Like we talked about, communication is key. Now, I'm really curious about what you mentioned a little bit earlier about how you're going to give folks a few tips and tricks to find more money and more lenders all around them.
All right. So I think I've kind of gone through a few, which just to recap, when you're talking to people, always address the security issue first. Talk about how you're going to keep their money safe, how you're a professional, what you do that separates you from everybody else, right? And always address it. Use professional people like your certified IRA specialist, good insurance people, good title company, and an attorney that specializes in lender documents. And here's the last trick that I think is the nugget of all, is when you get to your IRA specialist, make sure you ask the IRA specialist to talk about the use of specialty accounts. What do I mean by specialty accounts?
Specialty accounts could be your health savings accounts that you're using to pay for health expenses, educational savings accounts that our children need to pay for any expenses related to the first and secondary school all the way through college, as well as your other employer plans if you're self-employed.
Yes, and that's what I'm trying to get to. If you start to talk to people as a family, and say, do you have any other IRAs, or do you have IRAs, even if they're not investing with their IRAs? Do you have any retirement accounts or IRAs? And maybe it might, yeah. Then you bring in the Rebecca Miller, right? You bring in the IRA specialist, and they start to explore. And what we'll find often is as we start to talk about them, they get interested in this investing and learning to grow money tax-free, and we get a little Roth IRA for little Johnny, and we get some money from mom's IRA, and we got some money from this person over here. And what we do is we take all these accounts and we put them together to make one loan. What's the advantage there? Here's the advantage. It's involving all these other people, right? And little Johnny may be little Johnny today, but Johnny's going to grow up to be big Johnny, right? And he's already learning about investing with this deal today. You're literally training your lenders for the future. Every deal that you do, you have the opportunity to bring in extra people, because you could have an account as little as $2,000 or $3,000, right?
And you can partner with those larger accounts.
I can partner it with a larger account, right? And it's a wonderful way. If you treat lenders as a long-term experience, and you're not just trying to educate them, but their entire family, and develop a relationship, you will grow your own lenders.
And I hope today's segment gives you a bit of a good idea on how you can find more money all around you, from how to really keep and build that relationship with your private money lenders that you can meet at great events like Quest Trust Company's educational classes and networking events, or Propelio's big event that's going to be coming up this May. And, well, also just how you can also partner together with other investors to do larger deals even yourself.
Yeah, and I really do want to take a minute to thank Propelio. I think education is the biggest and key ingredient to being a successful investor, period. And education isn't just something that happens once.
Nope.
It's a constant thing. We're constantly got to re-educate. And nobody really helps us more than Propelio. It's a phenomenal education tool. I love it. I use it. And I really appreciate that all you do for us.
Thank you again for joining us today on Quest Talks with Propelio TV.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, Batch Skip Tracing, Think Multifamily, CreativeCashflow.com, and Lifeonair.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV, and we'll see you later.